Hello everyone, today I'm going over installing our Extreme Kit in an XDM pistol. The process is the same for our drop-in kit. We've put some marks on the trigger guard that show the factory trigger travel. So you've got your take up, and then the brake, and then the reset. Take up, brake, reset. Let's check the pull weight. Let me go over the parts in the kit. Got our trigger, our extreme sear, striker safety lever, striker safety spring, reduced weight sear spring, competition sear spring, that's marked in blue on this end. This is our reduced weight sear spring and our extreme sear spring. The extreme is lighter. We have our reduced weight trigger spring and our competition trigger spring, and this is marked with blue dye as well. Start by removing the slide. I use a punch to depress the striker spring guide. Keeping my finger over the end of the slide, slide the spring guide or the retainer plate out. Move the striker status indicator and the striker spring guide. Depressing the striker safety and holding it there, I remove the striker safety retaining pin, then release pressure, remove the striker safety and striker safety spring. And install our striker safety spring. You need to make sure you get the striker safety spring in the pocket in the bottom of the slide. A good check is to make sure that the striker safety goes flush with that surface in the slide. Reinstall the striker safety retaining pin. I'm using our competition striker spring. Reinstall this whole assembly, compress the spring, hold it down using the striker retainer plate, use a punch, push down the striker spring guide. That's it for the slide. Moving on to the frame. There's some differences in the order that we do this on the Elite from the regular XDM. I'll start by pushing out the sear pin, placing my hand over the back of the frame, remove the punch, Use the punch to push the striker safety spring and sear spring down into the magazine well. Remove the striker safety lever, the sear, and the ejector. Use the ejector to push the ejector pin flush with the inside of the frame rail. Move to the front, start the two locking block pins. Remove those. Rotate the takedown lever to the 12 o'clock position, then to the 10 o'clock position. From the 6 o'clock position, keep pulling out and rotating counterclockwise. Comes out. I'm going to lift the locking block. That comes out along with the slide lock spring, the disassembler transfer bar, the slide lock. I'll compress the trigger and remove the trigger and trigger bar. Rotating the trigger bar forward and pulling to the right, separate it from the trigger. I'm going to pull the disassembler back and partially install the sear spring, or the sear pin. That keeps the disassembler held back. Our trigger and our competition trigger spring. Install the trigger bar, rotate it to the rear, capturing the spring. Compressing the spring and trigger bar, I install that into the frame. Next is the slide lock. If I pull the trigger back, the slide lock will sit all the way down. Then the disassembler transfer bar goes into the notch in the back of the slide here, and the front rests in the pocket up front. Holding that in place, take the locking block and slide lock spring, had to push the slide lock down. Install the trigger pivot pin, the locking block pin. Make sure the pins click into their detents. Reinstall the takedown lever by placing it in the 6 o'clock position, rotating counterclockwise and pushing. Back to the 6 o'clock position, rotate counterclockwise and push. As I rotate the takedown lever forward, you'll see the disassembler here is held back. So I'll hold the disassembler back by keeping that in the assembled position. Our striker safety lever. Install our sear. On the Elite, we need to reinstall the striker safety lever spring. I do that as an assembly with our sear spring. This is our extreme sear spring. Making sure the striker safety lever spring is over the end of the striker safety lever. Push the sear pin through to hold those two springs in. Reinstall the ejector. You can rock the injector back and forth until you can get the ejector pin started. And I push it till it's just past the frame rail here. Compress the two spring legs and tuck them underneath the ejector pin. Finish seating the ejector pin, making sure it's flush with the frame rail. Do the same with the sear pin. Now I can check the reset. Pull the trigger to the rear and hold it. Push down on the trigger bar. Slight pressure on top of the striker safety lever. Release. It's resetting just fine. I'll reinstall the slide. We'll check the trigger travel. So there's the take up, the brake, reset, take up. Now we'll check the trigger pull weight. Thanks for watching.